And I like, Laurie, you mentioned earlier about possibly even customizing the pay plan to the individual. It's no different than
Right.
kind of what we're doing right now. We're customizing our sales efforts or our service efforts to the individual. And I love the fact as an industry we're doing this. I just want to concede to keep it going. Melanie, kind of your thoughts on messaging and branding and marketing. What should we be putting out there? What do you think?
So over the last 4 months, it's been interesting to say the least in terms of, no one had a playbook for what they should be putting out there. So definitely, and you have right now two schools of thought about what is happening with COVID, right? There are people in our country that think that it is nothing, and there are people who think that it is something. So you have to be mindful of both those sets of people with putting together content and creative. So one of the things that we have been doing from the very beginning is just letting people know that we're open and how we can accommodate them. So it almost was like this was the training portion for anything that could come up next for the dealership in terms of we had digital retailing in place. We already had the ability for a guest to purchase a vehicle on our website. We already had pickup and drop off for service. We already had remote deliveries. We already had all these things in place, but we weren't marketing it as much as we are now. So now what our focus primarily is, we are open. We can accommodate you in any way that you please. Obviously, we are also following any of the state guidelines that are out there that we have to follow. And we just want to make sure that people feel comfortable when they walk into the dealership and they feel safe, because that's also important. But we also are focusing big on relationships. I mean, that is something that Lori had mentioned, that we want to make sure that they feel like they are in a good environment to bring their family in. And if they're not, that they know that someone would come to their home and that they know who we are, and that they would also be comfortable with that as well. So definitely comfort is a factor. And I just wanted to mention something, Jason, that you had asked before about talking about, internal brands. Sorry to jump around, but you had talked a little bit about, branding and the culture and how that kind of resonates. And the one thing I was thinking was, we at our group, our COO was in the hospitality industry for 30 years.
Mm.
So he worked in hotels, he managed hotels. So the way that a lot of our leadership meetings they're very inspirational, they're very powerful, and they talk a lot about other people. And it's not necessarily, for myself, right? So I work in marketing, I'm not customer facing. So the one thing that he always says to us is, if you are not servicing the customer, then you should be servicing someone who is. Right. So if
Mm.
you see garbage on the floor, if you saw garbage on the floor in your own home, you would pick it up. So if you see it outside the dealership, you would pick it up. If you see it in the showroom, you would pick it up. A lot of us are here so much more so than they are with their own home. So to create that family environment, to create that synergy in the store, it definitely comes from the top down, as Lori was mentioning earlier.
Mhm.
But having an element of hospitality and treating guests that way, I believe, will help significantly with changing a culture within the dealership, just from what I see every day.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you 100% on this. I mean, you know what word we're using? And it's a word that we do not use in our industry much at all. Flexible. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're being
That's like that
flexible
word.
here.
Talk about four-letter
Right.
words. Flexible is
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I'm a perfect example.
right?
I'm a perfect example of that. Since, once the state of New Jersey was shut down, I went to my COO and the owner and I said, look, I need to work remotely right now. Is that okay with you? If I'm able to do that, I will get everything done and I will do it timely. And I will make sure that everything that I would normally do here, I'm doing remotely. And they said, no problem.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
So having
talk
that
about creating a message that defines our brand for both our
Mhm.
staff and our customers. All right. That is something that I want to hear. I want to hear that from my employer. I want to hear right now from my employer that, hey, we're flexible. We know there's shit going on. All right. There's
Right.
stuff you're going to have to do. kids are at home.
Right.
This is going on. Maybe your spouse is not working. Maybe
Right.
maybe you have to go travel and see family. I think it's just a word that we just don't use often enough, and
Right.
I think that's a marketing message that plays and resonates both with our staff and our customers. Is like, how can we be flexible?